Southern California, good evening, and welcome to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. We have ourselves a busy show today, as always, as UCLA's men's basketball team has sadly bowed out of the NCAA tournament. They fell to North Carolina. They had themselves a good season. Or did they? Can this season be deemed as a success? We'll debate that in a little bit. And how about LAFC? Currently undefeated as they have yet to lose a match. Can they keep it up and not falter toward the finish line? And the Galaxy sadly took one on the chin to Orlando, but it's early in the season. Unlike the Anaheim Ducks, who can't seem to get out of their own way as they have not won a game in God knows however. They've lost 8 in a row, and I'm about to unleash on them. And the LA Kings seem to continue their success, but can they continue their success and overtake Calgary? We shall find out on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. And welcome all to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Thank you very much for joining me on this beautiful Saturday evening. Feeling much better after Sunday, and I am glad to be back here pretty much 100%. Once again, I'm not as miserable as I was back on Sunday when I was just sick as a dog, but I'm glad to be back on the air. And without any further delay, let's get on into this Southern California sports action. But first and foremost, we have a word from our sponsors. iSports Radio has been proud to call the Southern California Warriors the official sponsor of iSports Radio. The world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organization. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get filmed to tryout for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get that second chance you've been waiting for as an athlete, because everyone in the world deserves a second chance. Unless, of course, you're a bad person, of course. You can follow them on Twitter at SoCal Warriors, on Instagram at SouthernCalifornia_Warriors, and on Facebook by typing in the word Southern California and the Warriors. And they're just great people. Coach Okalani is a great guy, and I always see my boy Larry Beat tearing it up defensively on the field. And I've even PA announced a couple of their games. It's a fun time. And then definitely do follow IE Sports Radio on Twitter and on Instagram at IE Sports Radio, and on Facebook by typing in the word IE, then Sports, then Radio. And definitely head on over to their website, www.iesportsradio.com. And when you go there, there will be a Patreon link with 5 different tiers, with the first one starting off at $5 a month. This donation gets you a shout from all 32 of our shows. Higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, such as hoodies, t-shirts, and hats, access to IESRU, the podcasting university of IE Sports Radio, and a chance to be featured on a segment of IE Sports Radio's flagship show, The Defining Moment with Larry B. Because for the past 7.5 years, iSports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. All the while, we've been continued to be by the fans and for the fans. And with your help, we're ready to take the next biggest step. Thank you to everyone for making iSports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. Big shout out to our Patreon supporters, Bay Area Raised Apparel, and Marcus Los Great, who was in the chat room. He says, I've been messing up, bruh. Please forgive me. I will live in your chats regularly. Hey, it's all good, Marcus. You are totally forgiven, and since you are a Patreon supporter, you are 100% forgiven. It's no big deal. We totally have your back. We know how busy you are, and we appreciate everything you do. And also, we have to give a shout out to our iSports Radio Fan of the Month, because without the fans, we don't amount to too much. So our iSports Radio Fan of the Month is none other than Marcy Vargas, 88. She's a Packer fan hailing from Mexico. iSports Radio is all over the world, baby. We're taking over one city at a time. If you get that reference, I'll give you $1. I'm just kidding. So, also, the 2022 NFL Draft is right around the corner, and iSports Radio is excited to announce its third annual mock draft challenge. The rules are simple. Predict all 32 first-round picks. That's it. No trades, no modifications, no tricks, no pass and go, no collecting $200, none of that. The participant who has the best and most accurate mock draft will receive a shout-out on all of our shows and their choice of an iSports Radio hat or t-shirt. For more information or to submit your mock draft, please reach out to Mike Pat at letswine_IESR, and his Twitter info will be in the description of this show. Good luck to everyone that participates. Also, March is the home of March Madness, and if you can't catch one of the NCAA men's basketball games, we've got you covered when it comes to the broadcast, as we have our entire family of networks via USRN, USRN2, Wellington Sports Radio, and iSports Radio doing live broadcasts on the Mixlr app. So there is that right there. Now, without any further delay, let's get on into the Southern California action. So we already have the chat room bumper. We have my brother Matthew Hames. He says Steelers are going to get that wide receiver from USC, which is Drake London. Yes, it is Drake London. So that's kind of interesting. Now, I would think the Steelers would want to draft a quarterback, but I guess they'll be rolling with Mitch Trubisky, which is understandable, and you never know if the top quarterbacks such as Kenny Pickett won't be available, but we'll see what happens. And Amanda says, boo Packers, referring to the fan of the month, Marcy Vargas. I understand where you're coming from, Amanda. So, yeah, boo Packers. But we got to jump to some NCAA men's basketball, as we have to put the final NCAA men's basketball team to rest this season, as UCLA fell in the Sweet 16 to North Carolina, 73-66 yesterday. And it's disappointing that their season ended, but honestly, it was still a good season. Now, many people like to always say the old saying, if it's not an NCAA championship, it's not deemed a success. For UCLA's case, I feel it can be deemed a success, but obviously it's not as successful as everyone had basically told them to. So, Marcus says, something tells me they're going to draft that kid from Pittsburgh. That's what I'm thinking too. I'm thinking that the Steelers will draft Kenny Pickett. I feel that could be the case, but we'll see. We'll see. So, back to UCLA. Yeah, for UCLA, they exceeded some expectations, but they didn't have the expectations like last year. I guess basically they were just given so many expectations, saying this is a UCLA team that returns most of its starters. This is a UCLA team that is legit. Johnny Juzang is the real deal. Jaime Jaquez is also a beast. Tiger Campbell is a beast, no pun intended. Cody Riley is that dude. The list goes on and on. Unfortunately, they just couldn't live up to the hype. And it is tough to have to deal with that outside noise and having to deal with people plant so many expectations on you. And obviously losing to some of these not so great teams like Arizona State didn't really help matters. As Marcus says, he had UCLA in the Final Four. Oof. I think I had them in the Elite Eight, if not the Sweet 16. So Marcus actually says it best in the chat room. This may have been their best shot in a while. And that's actually facts right there, because a lot of these teams that are talented are losing left and right. Like, some of the top seeds have been going down, such as Gonzaga and Arizona, which Arizona actually lost in the Sweet 16 as well as Gonzaga. So, all in all, this definitely was probably their best chance at an NCAA championship. Unfortunately, they fell short to North Carolina, but North Carolina is a good team. I can't take that away from the Tar Heels, but at the same time, I think UCLA, I want to say they had a halftime lead, and then unfortunately it just slipped through their fingers, just because the ACC is actually legit. Because look at the ACC, they have Duke, North Carolina, and Miami in the Elite Eight. Now, obviously, I think I wasn't giving Miami enough credit just because I'm a USC homer. I like USC. I want USC to get out of at least the first round to just crack that number of wins in a single season record. As the chat room is just sandbagging all over Gonzaga. Matt says Gonzaga sucks, and Marcus says, lol, Zags had way too many lapses this season. I agree. This is why I'm not really high on Gonzaga when it comes to the tournament. I feel they are basically like the Houston Rockets with James Harden and Russell Westbrook. They do really good things in the regular season, and they make people say, oh wow, this team is legit. And then in the postseason, they just turn into a pumpkin. That's how I kind of compare it as. It's just my honest opinion, or maybe they're kind of comparable to the Dallas Cowboys, if that kind of fits that criteria, honestly. Either way, that's kind of how I compare Gonzaga. But back to UCLA, yeah, it was a tough loss, but I kind of deem this as somewhat of a successful season. I don't really think it's the greatest season, just because, well, they lost in the Sweet 16, which I honestly think they should have gone a little bit further, but you can't really get too mad at that. They played a blue blood in North Carolina. Now, obviously, this season was kind of an interesting season for UCLA because they had the COVID. They didn't win the Pac-12. They finished second behind Arizona. But this season actually marked the first time that UCLA got out of the first round for the second straight year, for the first time since 2014 and 2015. I was actually stunned by that fact. I was like, really? It took UCLA that long to get out of the first round for the second straight year? My goodness. And UCLA barely got past Akron. They beat St. Mary's, which was a legit opponent. And they were like neck and neck with UCLA up until the latter part of the second half. So for me, I think UCLA this season can be deemed a success, and I think as long as some of UCLA's players can come back next year, such as Jaime Jaquez and Tiger Campbell, I think they'll be in good shape. Now, Johnny Juzang's stock has kind of plummeted, and I kind of wonder if he'll come back next year or if he'll go to the NBA, because he didn't have that explosion season like he did last year. As Matt Hames says, at least UCLA saved some dignity and doesn't have to get beat by St. Peter's tomorrow night. That's pretty oh, that's pretty funny. I mean, everyone is on the St. Peter's train. I even said it on Fast Break in the chat room. I said Purdue's run is going to end to St. Peter's. No one wanted to believe me, but St. Peter's actually got the job done. That 15th seed St. Peter's. And I would have liked to have seen St. Peter's versus UCLA. I think everyone would have turned on UCLA, which would have been another case of Southern California versus the entire world. But, oh well. I guess we'll never know how good UCLA would have been against St. Peter's. C'est la vie. So to close the NCAA men's basketball book, and I guess the women's basketball book, considering their team, all the teams in Southern California got bounced in the NCAA tournament, even though none really made the tournament to begin with. It was a fun year. We got to see USC tie the number of wins in a season. We got to see San Diego State nearly resurrect itself, but unfortunately, it was just they lost in the first round again. And then we also got to see the resurgence of Cal State Fullerton, as well as the resurgence of Long Beach State. And I guess we could also throw UC Riverside in that mix, just because UC Riverside, for the first time this season, had double-digit conference wins, or first time in its tenure that it ever had double-digit conference wins, which it speaks to high volumes of how good and how improved UC Riverside was. And then Long Beach State obviously had a big turnaround. They won 20-plus games. Unfortunately, they lost by 1 to Cal State Fullerton in the Big West Conference title, which really made me unhappy. But at the same time, it made my brother happy. But we can deem that as a successful little feather in the cap for Southern California men's college basketball. So, at the very least for UCLA in women's basketball, they are in the NIT, which they actually play Oregon State tomorrow, and they're actually in the quarterfinals after barely surviving against Wyoming in triple overtime, 82-81. Now, obviously, no one gives two rats' tails about the NIT because it's the not invited tournament, as some people like to call it. But I have to give UCLA women's basketball some praise. Look, it's basically in my contract. I got to give UCLA women's basketball some love. And if they do win the championship, cool. We'll give them a shout-out. Or I'll give them a shout-out. Just because the ladies deserve some love. Especially after how last year they lost in the second round. But I digress. So, UCLA plays Pac-12 rival Oregon State tomorrow at noon in the women's NIT quarterfinal. The game will be held in Corvallis, Oregon at Gill Coliseum. We shall see what UCLA has to offer against the Beavers. I think it'll be a fun little matchup right there, and I don't think that the two did get to play one another, and Oregon State came out on top against UCLA 72-58. So this is kind of going to be the redemption game for UCLA women's basketball. And if they win, cool. But if not, then they had a good year. So that's pretty much that for NCAA men's and women's basketball. And hats off to them to all the teams on a fun season. I'm glad we got to see growth from some of the Southern California teams, not just named USC. Can I also just say that I'm disappointed in USC that they wound up losing in the first round, and then Miami, the team that USC lost to, beat Auburn, and then they beat Iowa, they thrashed Iowa, and now they play Kansas. I would have loved to have seen a USC versus Kansas matchup round 2. Because last year, USC beat the brakes off of Kansas, which I hate to see USC losing to the team that is now having success. It's like your girlfriend leaving you and going off with another man who has a six-pack, who is rich as can be, and is having success with that said boyfriend. Okay, so Marcus brings up a great question, and I actually was going to segue into this. He says, what did you think about the Dodgers guarantee? So he's referring to what Dave Roberts said, saying that the Dodgers are going to be World Series champions in 2022. Oh my goodness. So first of all, I was going to make Dave Roberts the dum-dum of the week, but honestly, I get his confidence. There's something else that was much dumber than what Dave Roberts did, but he guarantees that the Dodgers are going to be World Series champions in 2022. First of all, I kind of don't approve of that. I mean, I understand you want to be confident, but now you have painted a gigantic target on the Dodgers' backs. And first of all, the Dodgers always struggle when it comes to pitching. It seems like they always seem to find a way to struggle when it comes to pitching sometime down the road. It really grinds my gears. Second, it seems like the National League is getting stacked by the day. I mean, you have your San Francisco Giants, who have basically resurged. The question for the Giants is, can they continue or can they have the success they had last season? Then you have the Padres, which the big question for them is, can they survive the first few months without David Tatis? That is the big question. And then, obviously, can the Dodgers just be consistent overall? Can they be consistent in the postseason? Year after year, the Dodgers seem to do really good when it comes to the regular season, and then kind of just like Gonzaga, they falter in the postseason, with the exception of 2020, of course. But all in all, to answer Marcus's question, I didn't like that Dodgers guarantee, and now I kind of am worried, because if the Dodgers don't win the World Series, I kind of have to put Dave Roberts as my dum-dum of the week for when the Dodgers don't win that World Series. I'm not trying to say the Dodgers will not win the World Series, or I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy, but it's basically like Charles Barkley guaranteeing something. It might not happen, but we'll see. So I don't approve of the guarantee, but if it does come true, that's a big if. I think we'll all look back at this and wonder, how the heck did Dave Roberts predict this? And on the topic of Dave Roberts, he did get a 3-year extension, which is nice. I'm happy for Dave Roberts. He did guide the Dodgers to the World Series back in 2020. I get it was a shortened season, but if you didn't want COVID to happen, build a time machine, make sure COVID-19 does not happen at all, and then we can go about our lives as if COVID-19 didn't happen. But that would basically alter the timeline. We'd be probably having metal T-Rexes coming back and ruling the world. I don't know. I'm just saying. So, I'm just tired of this Mickey Mouse talk. That's what I'm trying to say. But I do look forward to what the Dodgers can do, especially with Freddie Freeman. Again, I still think the Dodgers pitching can leave a little bit to be desired, but I'd have to see going forward. Currently, the Dodgers, Angels, and Padres are in spring training mode, which is basically just player development. It's nothing to get excited about or get disappointed about. Like, if your team is doing bad in spring training, no need to hit the panic button. It's basically like the NFL preseason. It's just about player development and growth and not hitting of the panic button. This is why I don't buy into that. And no one is going to sucker me into any of these preseason games or any of these games that don't count. You're not going to trick me. You're not going to sucker me in. You're not going to make me care about wins and losses. Just player development. All right. So that is that for the Dodgers and I guess the MLB portion of that segue. So let's jump on into some MLS action because, well, the LAFC is actually undefeated, and I'm actually impressed. I didn't think LAFC would be undefeated at this point. They beat Vancouver 3-1 on Sunday, and despite giving up the first goal of the game to Tristan Blackman, LAFC responded well by getting a goal in the 27th minute from Ryan Hollingshed, and then they got a goal from Carlos Vela as LAFC took a 2-1 lead, and then Hollingshed added a second goal, which gave LAFC the 3-1 win, and they have continued to stay undefeated. Notice I said the word undefeated. They have tied a couple games, but they haven't lost a game. Actually, they only tied against Portland. All the other games are wins, which is very nice, and I'm impressed by LAFC. Maybe they can turn it around. They have 10 points, and their goal differential is +7, which is very nice. And it's rather impressive. They've only given up 2 goals all season, and the sky's the limit for LAFC if they can play their cards right. They can't just have lapses of they're not going to win in like 2 weeks or 1 month or 2 months, because then I got to crack jokes on them. Then I have to basically be serious and say LAFC hasn't won a match in over a month. And then that's when we all got to throw our heads back and just laugh at LAFC. So for LAFC, their early season success is great. But now they jump into the month of April where they will hit the road to play Orlando on Saturday, April 2nd. And then the following Saturday, 2 weeks from today, LAFC will be heading to Dignity Health Sports Park to play the LA Galaxy in the first installment of El Tráfico. That's going to be a fun little matchup right there. And then they've also got Sporting KC on Sunday, April 17th. And then they close out April against Cincinnati, which I don't really think they play Cincinnati a whole lot. So I think it's going to be quite the interesting matchup for LAFC, but we'll see. As for the Galaxy, they lost to Orlando at home 1-0. They gave up a goal to Facundo Torres in the 9th minute, and unfortunately for the Galaxy, they were unable to score. So it's quite disappointing that the Galaxy lost, especially in an early goal, which kind of dampened their spirits early. And the worst part is that the Galaxy had possession of the ball 63% of the time, and they failed to score anything. They even had 20 shots, and 3 of them were on goal, but they just could not get the ball to find the back of the net. And then Orlando only had 6 shots on goal, or 6 shots, and then 2 of them were on goal. So it kind of just goes to show that this just was not the Galaxy's game. And losing at home didn't really do them any favors as well. Obviously, last week they lost to Seattle 3-2, but that's a different team. That's another team right there. Seattle is a much different team than Orlando. Orlando, I know, is having success early on, currently 5th in the Eastern Conference. But I think Seattle perennially is always that really good team. That's a loss that you don't really have much to be ashamed of. As for Orlando, they don't really know much about Orlando, and they don't really play them that often, so I guess this is kind of an early blip on the radar for the Galaxy, but they can't just have too many of these losses stacking up, because tomorrow they're actually on the road against Portland. Now the Timbers are obviously another one of those perennially good teams, especially in the Western Conference. Currently they're 10th, and a win would be helpful for the Galaxy. Actually, they're actually playing Portland not not tomorrow, but the following Sunday. So all in all for the Galaxy, they still have plenty of time. And obviously El Tráfico is going to be a big matchup. And then they've got Chicago, Nashville, and Salt Lake. I think they're going to really be fired up for Salt Lake because that was the team that kind of bounced them out of the playoffs. So the Galaxy better be motivated, and hopefully they do find a way to make sure they don't get shut out again, especially 1-0. And once again, they gave up a goal early in the game. It was at the 9th minute. You can't do that. You just can't, man. It does not work that way. So that is that for the MLS. Let's jump on over to some NHL, as it's just been a miserable time for the Ducks. They have lost 8 in a row as opposed to the Kings, which actually lost in a shootout to Chicago on Thursday. They lost 4-3 in the shootout, which makes me sad face because it was good to see the Kings winning. And that was actually one of their more guaranteed wins. I actually had the Kings beating the Blackhawks on Thursday, but losing to the Predators, ironically enough. But instead, the Kings stomped on the Predators 6-1. And then they lost to the Blackhawks 4-3. So tonight, the Kings have a 2-game homestand against the Seattle Kraken. They face the Kraken the first time tonight, and then they face the Kraken on Monday. The Kraken, and I hate to bring this up, the Kraken have not had a great season. They're dead last in the Pacific Division, but they're an expansion team. We'll give them a break. I can't sandbag on the Kraken too much. So, honestly, it should be 2 wins for the Kings, but their next matchup after the 2-game homestand against Seattle is going to be a crucial one. They play the Edmonton Oilers on Wednesday, and then Thursday they have the Calgary Flames, which could make or break their chances of maybe winning the Pacific Division. I feel Calgary's got the division on lock. Which, it would be cool to see the Kings overtake Calgary, but Calgary is kind of on fire. No pun intended. As Calgary has just recently won their last game. They beat the Coyotes 4-2. It's no real surprise. But after that Seattle series, it's going to start to pick up for the Kings, and we'll see if the Kings can do some damage. If they could actually pick up those 2 wins and beat the Flames or the Oilers, if they could win all 4 games, that would really be helpful to the Kings. But for me, I think they gotta at least get the win over the Kraken, the wins over the Kraken. And then they could focus on Edmonton and Calgary, which to me, they're both going to be tough. And then, surprisingly enough, the Kings play Calgary on Monday at not Staples Center, Crypto.com Arena. I almost said Staples Center. I got to get used to saying the Crypto.com Arena, just like how I had to get used to saying the Honda Center and not the Arrowhead Pond. Even though for me it'll forever be the Pond, but come on, Teran. So that's gonna do it for the Kings right there. As for the Ducks, I'm still disappointed. Like, they still can't seem to find an answer for picking up a win. I just don't get it, man. They were tied 2-2 in the third period against Chicago. And Chicago is not even that great. I'm sorry, but they're just not. I know they have Patrick Kane, but still, they're just trying to blow it up. They've been a mess this entire season. But now, it seems like the Ducks this season is spiraling out of control, and I really am concerned for the Ducks going forward. And then they lost to Nashville on Monday 6-3, which, golly. It's just been tough sledding for the Ducks. There's no kinder way to say it. Tough sledding for the Ducks. They have the Sharks tonight. That seems to kind of be their answer to all their problems. But then they have a 2-game homestand against the Dallas Stars, which, looking at the Dallas Stars, they're kind of in the middle when it comes to being good. Like, Nashville's kind of in the hunt to make the playoffs in the Central Division. They're 3 games back of Nashville, so I think for Dallas, those games against Anaheim are going to be just as crucial for them as they are to the Ducks, just because the Ducks are basically in survival mode. They have to spread their wings going forward. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, if I come back here next week and the Ducks are still on a losing streak, I am going to rip the Ducks a new one. Because this seems to happen year in and year out, but it seems to happen in different parts of the season. The Ducks start off making waves, having everyone interested, saying, the Ducks might be a different team. And then they start falling apart with a losing streak, and that losing streak just falls apart, makes the Ducks fall apart and fall apart and fall apart and fall apart. And all in all, the Ducks just seem to just fall flat in their face and go bye-bye. So Amanda says, go Wild. Yeah, thanks for the reminder, Amanda. Minnesota's doing really good in the Western Conference, and they are second in the Central Division. So, I appreciate you mentioning the Wild, though, Amanda. We also say hello to Pierre Moss in the chat room. Says, go get him, Teran. Hey, thanks, Pierre. Hey, you go get him with those broadcasts as well on our sister station. So, definitely do check out Pierre Moss. So, to summarize the Ducks' season, they are spiraling out of control. I do not approve of it. And if I promise you all, if the Ducks have not won a game by the time I do SoCal Supreme Sports Show next Saturday or Sunday or whenever, I promise you I will be ripping them to shreds. I will not hold back. Speaking of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, I wonder when I'm going to do the next episode. It's going to be, I'll discuss that at the end of the show, just because next week is going to be some interesting times for me. I'll discuss that at the end of the show. So, that's going to do it for the NHL portion of this show. If you want more in-depth NHL action, definitely do check out the Neutral Zone with Adam Karnick and Zach Puplis every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 p.m. Eastern. And you get to hear Zach and Adam just have fun and break down all things hockey. And they do a great job. They make my Tuesdays whenever I get the chance to listen. Excuse me if you heard a little burp, but I digress. So that's going to do it for the NHL portion of the show. Let's jump on into the NBA portion. Let's talk a little NBA, and then we'll head to a commercial break. So the Lakers surprisingly haven't been ultimately disappointing. So they're still trying to keep their season afloat, and it's just been ugly for them. The good news is the Lakers actually got a win. But last Saturday they lost to the Wizards 127-119. I am disappointed. But on Monday, the Lakers beat the Cavs 131-120. And believe it or not, this is actually a feather in the Lakers' cap. The Lakers actually swept the Cleveland Cavaliers in the season series, which, my goodness. Marcus says, the Lakers haven't been complete trash. Just regular trash. That's pretty funny right there. He says, they haven't been complete trash, just regular trash. Oh, that's pretty funny, Marcus. Oh my gosh. Yeah, the Lakers they've just been trash. It's just been a complete wash of a season. And then on Wednesday, the Lakers lost to the Philadelphia 76ers 126-121. In their defense, they didn't have LeBron because of his right knee soreness, and then they didn't have AD. But unfortunately, it was just another one of those losses, which I'm pretty sure Philly was favored by more than 5 points. And if they weren't, then yeah, Philly was favored 9.5 points. So for those that took that 9.5 points, congratulations on taking the line. So the Lakers are back at it tomorrow against the New Orleans Pelicans in New Orleans. Now that's a crucial game, and I can't believe I'm saying that just because the Lakers and the Pelicans are neck and neck for that final play-in spot. And the San Antonio Spurs are right on the Lakers and Pelicans' trail. So, for me, the Lakers have to come up big if they want to have any hope of making the play-in game and of having any hope of making the playoffs. Because, again, it would just be disappointing to see the Lakers miss the playoffs. And most of my friends that are Lakers fans are obviously just saying Lakers should just tank the rest of the season, just rest LeBron and just rest everybody. And I guess the Lakers are just going forward and just trying to have one last ditch effort. I mean, if they do make the playoffs, which heaven knows that would be a miracle beyond miracles, they would probably get the Phoenix Suns or the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, the Grizzlies have been rather good lately, and the scary thing is, even without Ja Morant, they've only lost 2 games. That's how you have this next man up mentality. Take note, Lakers. Or the Lakers will also have the Phoenix Suns, which it'll most likely be the Suns, considering I don't think they're going to catch up to the Clippers at this point, because they're 4 games back of the Clips, and even if they do get that, even if the Lakers do finish at number 8 behind the Timberwolves, can they really beat the Timberwolves in the first play-in game? No. I want to say the Lakers have lost all but 1 game against the T-Wolves this season. And the T-Wolves are drastically improved. So, yeah, I'm not confident in the Lakers facing the T-Wolves. I mean, maybe the Clippers have a better chance at beating the Timberwolves. But jumping over to the Clippers, they've had themselves some tough sledding as of late, as they've now lost 5 in a row. They got stomped on by the Sixers, 122-97. They lost to the Nuggets, which that was also a crucial game for the Clippers, considering at the time the Nuggets were number 7, and they're basically in that play-in threshold, as the Nuggets beat the Clippers 127-115. That could have been a great game for the Clippers to get a little bit closer out of the play-in threshold. And then last Friday, the Clippers lost to the Jazz in Utah 121-92. So this has just been a big oof of losses for the Clippers, as they just can't seem to get out of their own way. And the schedule is starting to pick up for them. Fortunately for the Clippers, they did receive some good news. Paul George was back. I believe he was working out lightly ever since his elbow injury, which is good news just because heaven knows the Clippers are going to need all the help they can get when it comes to making the playoffs / play-in game. Like, for me, I think the Clippers are destined for the play-in game. And even if they do somehow sneak their way into the 6th seed, are they really going to want to face the Warriors? And can they beat the Warriors in a 7-game series? I hate to say this, Clipper fans and Southern California fans, but the answer to if the Clippers can beat the Warriors in a 7-game series is a big fat no. I just don't think the Clippers have enough depth on their team against a Warriors team. And even though the Warriors have kind of been banged up, they will not have James Wiseman for the rest of the season. Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, and Draymond have kind of been hampered by injuries a little bit. I still think the Warriors have more depth on their team, and I think that the Warriors could survive in a 7-game series against the Clippers. Yes, the Clippers are tough to get rid of. They're like cockroaches, but for the Warriors, they're the best type of exterminator. It's like trying to choose between Terminex and your local exterminator company when you try to get rid of termites and cockroaches. So, all in all, for the Clippers, they just don't have enough depth. And without Kawhi Leonard, and heaven knows what's going to happen with Paul George, we might not never know. Like, obviously, the Clippers will get a big boost from Paul George, but no Kawhi this season, and we don't even know if he is going to play. There's still some hope that the Clippers could see Kawhi Leonard this year, but I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. So we'll have to see what happens with the Clippers going forward, and if they can turn the tide and possibly make the postseason. If they can, awesome, but I won't get my hopes up of having a deep playoff run like they did last year. It just doesn't seem like it's in the cards for the Clippers this year. But one can only hope. So that is going to be that for the NBA portion of the show. Let's take ourselves a quick little commercial breaky break. And when we come back, we'll see if we have more Southern California sports to get into. And then we obviously have the Dum Dum of the Week. You're not going to want to miss that. So tune in. You're tuning in live to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all of that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Dentarius Lava.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That gives you guys spending time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
It's IE Sports Radio. It is your direct feed for all that is sports. It is Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris every Tuesday night right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris is the most comprehensive view on Philadelphia sports exclusively right here on IE Sports Radio. You know what it is, your direct feed for all that is sports. Tuesday night, IE Sports Radio, Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy white tea. We are coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Welcome back to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Definitely do check out all of those shows that just played over the commercial break. Definitely do check out Shiketown Weekly with Adam Karnick, Fast Break with Dave Vincent Crooks and Darius Locke, Philly Sports Talk with Bobby, Cash, and Chris. And also check out Gloves Off with my boy Marcus Los Great. So now let's jump on into the second half of the show. And we actually have ourselves a SoCal Supreme Sports Show first in this show. Okay, it's not that dramatic, but still. So for the first time, I will be discussing some NWSL. Now, what is NWSL, dare you ask? It's National Women's Soccer League. And basically, there are Southern California teams in the NWSL. And it's not just one team. I talked about the San Diego Wave FC. But there is another team in Southern California when it comes to the NWSL. And that just so happens to be Angel City FC. And the two teams actually played one another last week. Now, Angel City FC is a NWSL team that was actually announced in July 21st, 2020, and they have high-profile owners such as Serena Williams, Natalie Portman, Eva Longoria, Mia Hamm, and Becky G. So it's great to see that the NWSL has come to Southern California, and then obviously we have San Diego Wave FC as they announced that they were going to be an expansion team in the NWSL, and this was announced last year, and they are owned by Ron Burkle, and their head coach is Casey Stoney, and they actually have Alex Morgan on their team, so good for San Diego FC. But let's talk about last week's historic game between the San Diego Wave, and Angel City FC. So the two teams tied for winning their game last week in Group Stage B play, as the two teams tied 1-1 last Saturday, and both teams had 17 shots, and Angel City had 6 of them on goal, while San Diego had 5 on goal. So, all in all, it was a great opening game for both teams, and for me, we obviously want to see a team win and not lose, but it's great to see both of these teams just getting their feet wet and having basically playing their first game against one another. It's basically a nice little Southern California rivalry, and I like it. So, good job to both teams on competing and playing to a 1-1 tie. Angel City actually played today, and unfortunately, they lost 3-1 to the OL Reign, which really stinks. They're back at it on Wednesday against the Portland Thorns. Now, meanwhile, for the San Diego Wave, they are back at it today against the Portland Thorns in San Diego, or wherever they play at 7 p.m. So they'll actually be playing in Torero Stadium at the University of San Diego. Now, Angel City FC actually plays their game at Titan Stadium at the campus of Cal State Fullerton, which I like it. I mean, you got to find somewhere to play, but I hope they can get their own stadium. I mean, it looks like San Diego State is going to... I want to say San Diego State's going to have a renovated stadium, and they're going to renovate Qualcomm so they don't just play in like a little shoebox. And it's going to have San Diego's professional team playing in there as well. So I think it's going to be fun for San Diego FC to play in their own stadium and not just have to leech off of the University of San Diego. So all in all, I'm happy that we're going to be getting we have new sports going on. Like, it really is great just because I've always wanted an NWSL team in Southern California, and the fact that we haven't gotten one until now has kind of really made me happy and gives me something else to talk about, not just the MLS and all the other mainstream sports. Gotta give the ladies some love. Alright, so that is that for the NWSL. I'll be talking more NWSL next week. So now we gotta jump on over to the Dum Dum of the Week award. Now the Dum Dum of the Week award can go to any organization or anybody that I just so happen to desire that deserves the Dum Dum of the Week. No person or organization is safe from the Dum Dum of the Week award. It could be myself, it could be my neighbor, it could be someone that I think is noteworthy of being the Dum Dum of the Week award. So this Dum Dum of the Week award actually goes to a nice little spot in Southern California, as basically, you know how I almost messed up and said Staples Center when it's now the Crypto.com arena? Well, we have ourselves another changing of the name when it comes to a stadium getting a new name. And I'm just going to say this right now. I don't like it when stadiums or gymnasiums have to change their name. It really just grinds my gears. And this week's Dum Dum of the Week goes out to none other than Cal State Northridge. Now, why would I give Cal State Northridge the Dum Dum of the Week award? It's not because I went to Long Beach State, but they're actually announcing the changing of their gymnasium. It's no longer going to be known as the Matadome. It's now going to be known as, can we get a drum roll, please? Before I announce the new name, I just gotta say, Cal State Northridge is known as the Matadors. And the Matadome, that's the most clever name I've ever seen. The Matadome. Like, I can't really, you can't take that name away. First of all, you cannot take that name away. So, the new name of the Cal State Northridge Gymnasium is, for real this time, the Premier America Credit Union Arena. Let me say that again. Cal State Northridge's new basketball gymnasium is now named the Premier America Credit Union Arena. On what planet is that a good name? You got rid of a clever name that was the Matadome, and you replaced it with that mouthful of milk duds? I can't believe that. It was almost as bad as replacing Staples Center with Crypto.com Arena. I am not a Long Beach State grad, nor student, or any affiliation anymore of that. But I will just gladly say, how dare you, Cal State Northridge, for getting rid of a clever name such as the Matadome? Who wants to say the Premier America Credit Union Arena? I just could not believe that. It's like, it is the most saddest day to hear that. I was just like, oh my God. It's like, you can't be serious. You could not make this up. This was reported by Tariq Fatal 3 days ago. But I just could not believe they named it that. It's like, why? Why Northridge? And I couldn't even, it was tough to pinpoint who was the one that changed Staples Center to Crypto.com Arena. But now I know who changed Northridge's arena from the Matadome to that five-word hunk of junk. Like, Northridge, why would you get rid of the Matadome? The Matadome just has such a great ring to it. Cal State Northridge is known as the Matadors. You can't just get rid of such an iconic arena name. And yet you gave it that name? It doesn't even have a good ring to it. Premier America Credit Union Arena. What, are we just going to call it the PACU? The PACUA? Or we're just going to call it that? No. I will forever know Cal State Northridge's gymnasium or arena as the Matadome. I don't care what anyone says. And Cal State Northridge, for you naming it that, the Pacific America Credit Union Arena, and getting rid of the Matadome, you are this week's Dum Dum of the Week Award recipient.
That's so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
Wait. Run that back, my guy. Let everybody know what Cal State Northridge is. Let everyone know what Cal State Northridge is.
That's so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
And that, my friends, is all she wrote. I'm no Northridge student, but I would be irate at seeing that change. I would just puke. I would probably just transfer. Like, good Lord Almighty. You just can't do that, Northridge. Just... When will people learn that just leave the name as is? Oh my goodness. So, that is your Dum Dum of the Week award. I'm sorry, Cal State Northridge. We love you, but you can't just make that change. The Matadome was just so clever. So, oh well. But on that note, that is going to do it for this week's episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I don't know when we'll be back next week. It's going to be a busy week for me, especially with what's been happening at my current full-time job. But we'll see what happens. We will get the SoCal Supreme Sports Show down pat for next week. Probably next Saturday afternoon, just because I hate to spoil this for Set Point. But I will be going to Long Beach State for their men's volleyball matches. Yes, I'm going to 2 matches this upcoming week against Hawaii. The first one being on Friday and the second one being on Saturday. And it's obviously a big matchup. So I had to spoil that for Set Point. So that's basically what I'm going to be talking about soon. So without any further delay, let's get on out of here, because I got to get me some dinner. You dig? Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I really do appreciate you all tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at any point of the day, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, I appreciate you. Big shout out to the chat room. My boy Brandon Buck, a.k.a. The Franchise, just popped in. Marcus Los Grace said, also added the nerve of Cal State Northridge. And then Larry B just popped in. And also got to give a shout out to Amanda J, Pierre Moss, Cale Henderson, Matthew Haynes. And if I missed anybody that listened or was in the chat room, just let me know. So for everyone here at iSports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. You all have yourselves a great rest of the weekend. Enjoy the NCAA men's basketball. Enjoy the weekend. Be kind to one another. Just be great overall. Don't be a possible nominee for Dum Dum of the Week. Don't change a name that's definitely good, like Northridge did, or whoever state was sent originally. Just don't be that type of dumb. So I will see you all sometime next week for 7. So you all have yourselves a great weekend, and remember, SoCal is for SoCal. Peace!